Good morning, first grade. Today we're learning about plant parts, and today's part is stems. So we're going to continue reading our book, What Do Roots, Stems, Leaves, and Flowers Do? And this story is written by Ruth Owen. And we are on page 10. A plant's stems. A plant's stems support the plant, acting like a framework. Thinner stems grow from a plant's main stem and connect to its leaves or flowers. On a tree, stems that grow from the plant's main stem or trunk are known as branches. The branches connect to even thinner stems called twigs, where the leaves grow. A plant's stems contain a system of tubes called xylem and phloem. Now, those two important pieces of information are bolded here in the text, so I'm going to write those on our chart, and then we'll talk about them a little bit more. So the first one they mentioned was the xylem, and that starts with an X. And I'm going to write these words over here by my magnifying glass because it's very difficult to see these parts in a stem on a plant, and so they magnify them either with a microscope or a magnifying glass, like this. So I'm going to write these vocabulary words down here by my magnifying glass, and we'll talk about them more. Xylem starts with the letter X, and it is spelled X-Y-L-E-M. And the word phloem starts with a PH, like in the word phone. And these are parts that we can find inside a stem. The xylem tubes carry water and nutrients from the soils through the plant's stems into its leaves. The plant's leaves act like little food factories making food for the plant. The phloem tubes carry its water from the leaves to wherever it is needed inside the plant. So looking under a microscope here, if you can see closely, this image here was taken by a scanning electron microscope, and it shows a slice of the nasturtium stem that has been magnified about 100 times. So this is really blown up closely for us to see. And looking at that magnified image, you can see the little tubes inside. The xylem tubes are a little bit bigger, and the phloem tubes look a little bit smaller, and they're kind of more like in a wavy pattern. And remember, those tubes, the xylem tubes, carry the water and nutrients from the roots up to the plant or up to the stem. And then the phloem tubes carry the food from the leaves to wherever it is needed inside the plant. So the xylem carries it up, and the phloem carries it from the leaves to wherever it is needed in the plant. Here is another diagram and labels with the twigs from the leaves from a tree, and the tree's stem or trunk, and the framework of branches. So we know that the trunk acts as the stem, carrying water up to the branches, and then the branches go off into twigs, and then the twigs carry the water to the leaves. In the world of plants, stems are often the plant part responsible for breaking records. A giant redwood tree in Redwood National Park in California is currently the tallest tree on Earth. The record-breaking tree named Hyperion has grown 379 feet tall. That's over 70 feet taller than the Statue of Liberty. It's possible, however, that one day an even taller tree might be discovered. The 2,000-year-old tule tree in Santa Maria del Sol, Mexico, has one of the thickest trunks on Earth. At its widest point, the tree's trunk measures 114 feet across. That's wider than the length of a basketball court. And here they have a picture of that tree, the tule tree here in Mexico. Do you see how wide it is? That is the trunk, the stem of the tree. Bamboo is a type of thick-stemmed grass plant from Asia. The stem of one species of giant bamboo can grow up to 3 feet in a single day. So we know that bamboo is a grass plant, but the stem of the bamboo can grow 3 feet in a single day. A giant bamboo is a fast-growing, huge species of grass. So here, looking at that photograph, you can see how thick and how tall the giant bamboo is compared to a human, to a person. We're going to stop there with what do roots, stems, leaves, and flowers do, and we're going to focus on some more vocabulary words from this book called Stems, Learn About Plants. This book is written by Steffi Cavell-Clarke, and it is a book all about stems. What is a plant? A plant is a living thing. All living things need water, air, and sunlight to live. There are many different kinds of plants. Most plants have roots, leaves, flowers, and a stem. And we know that plants live all around the world. But what is a stem? Let's think about that. What does a stem do? Why is a stem important to the plant? A stem is the main part of a plant. It grows above the ground. The stem has many important jobs. It holds up the plant and carries water from the roots to the rest of the plant. And in my diagram, I drew a picture of a rose here to illustrate how the stem holds up the petals, the flower at the top. What do stems look like? Stems come in many different shapes and sizes. Here is an illustration of a tulip stem, a cactus stem, and a bamboo stem, like we just read about. And of course, a tree is a very large plant. It has a large stem called a trunk that is covered in a layer of bark. The bark helps protect the tree. So now we have one way that the bark helps the tree is to protect it. How do stems grow? Out of a seed grows a tiny shoot. The shoot grows up through the soil and toward the sunlight. The shoot grows into a stem and continues to grow above the soil. Later, leaves and flowers will grow from the stem. And I drew a little illustration of a shoot over here. I'm going to label that picture so we know that that is a shoot, and that is growing from a seed underground. So the seed opens and out comes the shoot, and that is the first part of the flower to grow. This part would be the stem right here. And then these would be the leaves. And so we could say that when it first grows out, the whole thing is called a shoot. For the stem to grow, the plant needs water and sunlight. The plant's root absorbs water from the soil, and then the water moves up into the stem. What does absorb mean? If we think about a sponge absorbing water, that means it soaks up the water. So the water goes up into the plant through the stem, just like a straw. The plant's leaves absorb sunlight, which gives the stem energy to grow. What do stems do? The stem holds up the whole plant. So that's a reason we have the stem here holding up the whole plant. And it also allows for more leaves, flowers, and shoots to grow. Stems often grow straight and tall so that the plant's leaves are held up toward the sun. This helps the leaves to absorb sunlight and make food for the plant. Now I went out into my garden and I cut a rose. And you can see here that the rose stem is growing. It is a little bit like, it's not a straight line up, but it is growing straight towards the sun. And you can see here on the stem of the rose, there are thorns. You see the thorns here? So not only is the stem holding up the flower, it's also helping to protect the rose and help it absorb water through here. Ouch. Stems are filled with tiny tubes. That's the phloem tubes we talked about and the xylem tubes that we magnified here under the magnifying glass. If you were to hold up the magnifying glass and look really carefully here, you can see the tubes and the stems here. It says that the tubes are used to carry water from the roots to other parts of the plant, just like we talked about. Food that is made in the leaves is also carried through these tubes to other parts of the plant. So remember that the food is carried through the phloem tubes to other parts of the plants, and that the water and nutrients from the roots are carried up to the plant through the xylem tubes. Strange stems. Some plants grow thorns or spines on their stems. This helps protect these plants against animals that might try to eat them. And we learned about that when we read a little bit about cactus plants, and also right now when we looked at my rose plant. Plants in the desert are used to only having a small amount of water. Cactus plants have thick stems that store large amounts of water for the plant. So you can see here on this cactus, it's very thick, and that's they're very heavy as well, and that's where the water is stored inside in that trunk of the cactus. Stems in the forest. Forests are full of trees that have large, thick trunks. Trees have strong trunks that hold up many branches and leaves. The tallest trees in the world are redwood trees. Their trunks can grow to be over 328 feet tall. And that's, remember we talked about the trunk of the tree, the branches, the twigs, and the leaves. And those are all parts of the tree trunk. I'm going to label those just like they did in this diagram so that we know the tree has a trunk. The trunk leads to the branches. And then the branches lead to the twigs. And then the water goes from the trunk to the branches to the twigs to the leaves. And that is how the water is distributed through the plant, carried up into the leaves. Tasty stems. Some stems are safe for humans to eat, such as broccoli, celery, and rhubarb. You probably have some stems in your refrigerator right now, or on some produce, some plants like vegetables or fruits. But watch out, rhubarb leaves are poisonous. So you don't want to eat the leaves, only the stem. Many animals eat stems too. Giant pandas love to eat bamboo stems and leaves. So you can see in the photograph, the panda bear is eating bamboo. And at the back, we have a glossary of different terms that were discussed in the story. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed reading stems, learn about plants, and we'll continue with our next part of the plant, the leaves. Thank you. Bye.